Hi guys, Forza guy. I just wanted to put this in just before the start of the video. Obviously, in the video I mentioned about a book. Stay tuned with it towards the end of the video. It is there. Stupid me, forgot to put it in. Anyway, hope you enjoy this video. Um, any feedback or anything, leave me some comments, and I'll see you soon. Hi guys, welcome back to rebuilding a Honda Forza Part 5 2017. So we've made some progress. The panels are off. I will just say, just before I go any further in the video, apologies about the noise, if you can hear that. It's out of my thingy. So anyway, I've stripped the panels back. Now obviously in the video you would have probably wanted me to have shown you taking the panels off. Now I will give you an idea of how the panels come off, but for me to get an understanding basically how this bike comes to pieces, because I've never taken one to pieces before, I have to, and I'm going to try and tell you the best way of taking this whole bike together off, if that makes any sense. So yeah, let me just try and leave you on the tripod and give you a rough idea of what's what. So basically, when you're breaking this bike down, as you've seen in the previous videos, we was basically down to, obviously the front was off, the panels here was on, the footboards was on, whatever. So basically when your seat tub is in, you basically have your handrails on the outside. Now bear with. So, what I was saying, obviously you've got your handrails. No wonder this bloody bike's heavy. These are unbelievable. So, they naturally fit on the outer of your fairings. So obviously what you need to do is undo them and obviously pull them away. That's the first bit you want to be able to do. Now, when you've got that off, what you can do with your seat is your seat mounting bolts. So obviously you've got all this fairing off, as you've seen in the previous video, and you've got two bolts here. Basically you undo that. It's a little bit fiddly, but it is easy. Basically them will lift the seat away. Now the bloody seat is heavy, not ridiculously heavy where you can't lift it, but it's heavy. No wonder this bike's, what, 163 kilos? That's got to be 5 kilos on its own. But anyway, so you've got to that point where obviously you've taken the grab rails off, you've lifted the seat, the whole seat mechanism away. In order to get it off, you want to be working with your footboards first. Now, as you'll see in the front of this video shot screen, you'll see a metal bracket on the floor. I'll come round and I'll give you a better shot that way. So basically where your footboard is, where your feet go here, let me move those out of the way. They are mounted onto these metal posts. Now these are mounted directly here and here, and your plastic footboard that you put feet on sit onto that. So it's basically a case of unscrewing the bolts out that plastic shroud. Now let me just try and show you, give you a better representation. Where's the other one? Sorry guys if it's a bit all unplanned today. Noisy videos. So basically what we've got, you can imagine that metal thing underneath. You've got the whole assembly like that. So basically you undo your bolts that are in here that connect to this whole thing here. And basically there's also a bolt here. You undo that. Now it is a little bit fiddly, but you can sort of pull that side fairing away from this and basically pull the whole panel obviously you've got your rear foot peg through there. What you'll also find somewhere, now these were broken, underneath, because I've not taken the belly pan off yet, there's plastic rivets, nuts. That one there and one's completely destroyed on this one. And they basically attach there and there. And providing there's not too much grime in them, basically you can get a very thin headed screwdriver, just pop the rivet up and then literally pull the outer body down and they should come out, theoretically. I will advise you may have to replace them, they may break if they've got all gummed up and whatnot. It's just one of those, depending on the condition of your bike, etc. So, as I was saying, you've taken that away, and then obviously we are then left with that metal bracket. And as I was saying, you take that metal bracket away, and voila, that's what you have. So, you would repeat that for both sides. Now, when it comes to the whole rear assembly, this one's quite interesting, right? I genuinely, from previous bikes, I genuinely thought it was one side panel, another side panel, the rear. Not the case entirely. Let me just show you, just stay there. Right, that's what we're working with, that's what Honda have decided. Now, probably building them in the factory, that's fine, that's a quick way of building a bike and I get it. Now, obviously you can take these side panels off if you've got take the screws out here and undo the headlight out of it, but you can only do that when it's physically off the bike. So, I'm going to try and put this back and show you roughly how it comes off. So, I'm not too bothered about the condition of this one because it's not probably something I'm going to reuse. So basically it will look like that. Now bear in mind you obviously have your rear fender underneath here and there is a couple of plastic rivets. So as I was saying earlier, your grab rails fit in here. Obviously you need to free them away. You will also have your plastic panel here. Now this is a panel where I think there is some screws here, and this whole panel does slide back. Just watch your fingers because it did get me and I've still got a cut in my hand. So with that, you would then, as it sits, obviously you've got it to that point, you've taken this bit off, but the fender, the rear fender, is still on. Now bear with. So on this fender, it's a two-piece system. Don't think it comes off in one piece because it doesn't. Now, you'll have to be gentle with things. Sorry if you can't see me. But basically this obviously fits on the top half of the fender. And then obviously you've got the lower section, wherever it's disappeared to on me. Or use this one. Sorry, I've got my back to you. So, it's a two-part system. So to give you an idea, if we come a bit closer to the camera, this basically fits, if you can see me, this fits like that. Now, we'll have to get down and look, but basically there's two screws underneath. They're the two screws that you undo. And the clips, you'll have to finagle it a little bit, move it around a bit. And there is catches here, as you can see, that go into the panel. And as I was saying, the plastic rib nuts. Again, these don't bloody seem to want to come out on this one. But basically, this will pull away backwards, like that. So that will then leave you this. Now, Honda build things well. That's pretty stout, I'm not going to lie. It's certainly not cheap. Well, it's certainly not a cheap lump of plastic, that's for certain. So on this will be mounted on the rear. So what you've basically got, you've got 2 points, screw points, sorry, on there, both sides, that are connected on the tabs on the hangers on where the rear shocks are. You've also then got 2 bolts that fit in here that fit on the back. Now, even when, unless yours is somewhat damaged or whatever, even when you've got them off, it will still stay there. That's the beauty of Honda. That is the build quality. You know, it still don't give up even when you took its fixings out. That's just fantastic in my eyes. You know, but the easiest way basically to remove it is there is tabs down here on your hangers. You just have to just pry it just a little bit and it will come away. But obviously, bearing in mind you've got your number plate light that you would have to disconnect. And as I've said with all connections on this, it's a case of push down, pull out sort of scenario. And that's been basically how you'll get your rear fender off. Now, when it gets to that point, when you've got that fender off, and you've got the bolts out and everything, this then is relatively straightforward. It might seem a little bit reluctant to want to move, it's probably settled, you know, which is obvious, but by that point you will just move it around sort of thing, take it off certain things, and you will eventually pull it backwards and you will have the whole clamshell, if you want to call it that, and your rear light assembly. Bearing in mind, unplug your rear light cluster as well, and you'll have all that away. And then basically it gets you down to what you see now, this. Yeah, it does look a bit daunting, but use a bit of logic. You know, bag stuff, I mean, where you're looking at me from right now, there's whole bags around my camera, from handlebar bolts to side step bolts, you name it, I've written it on it. Because if you don't, you're going to end up with that kind of level of destruction. A whole bag, probably 1.5 kilos of bolts. So don't take your Forza to bits without using a bit of logic, because if you do, that's what you're going to find you're going to have, and you simply just will not be able to put your bike together unless you're Einstein. So yeah, that aside, this is basically what you're left with. And it is sort of straightforward. Now, there is a slight thing that I have taken off. Forza's brain, or starter, ECU, whatever, I believe it's all in one, I'm sure it is on these. This is mounted on 3 bolts, and it's basically mounted on the right hand side here. Now again, as I've said, I have taken the bolts away and I have put them in the bag as ECU bolts. So be careful with that. You don't want to go replacing that new from Honda. That's probably at least £500–600 of anyone's money. Yeah, you can take the gamble on eBay, whether they work or whatever, it's up to you. There's 3 connections to it. Again, they are tight, but obviously they're designed to be tight so they don't come out. Because obviously you don't want to be riding that road at 6 miles an hour, and you know, everything comes to pieces. So basically that one fits into there. Where has it gone? It does all make sense. There's a big one in there, and then there is another one somewhere. It's gone away, it's hidden somewhere, but it is there. So yeah, from that point onwards, obviously what I am now looking at doing is unclipping the wiring loom, and I have done in certain places. And basically I've got these little tabs here, and it is fairly easy to understand where it sort of goes, and I suppose over the period of time the loom has moulded to the shape of the bike. So like this, you know, you would basically push, where is it? Yes, sorry. You would push that one into there and it will clip like in a arrowhead formation. It then obviously goes down to here, goes across here. This is your kickstand grounding switch. That kills the bike when you put the side stand down. There is a few other bits. Obviously you've got a main hard line here. Obviously your ABS pump would be there. Your main hard line to your rear brake. You do have a joiner in here. You'll basically undo that. Be careful, brake fluid, it is corrosive. I was a little bit naughty myself the other day. Cracked these loose, got a bit of a cloth and drained them that way. And I could feel this burning sensation on my fingers. So if you're very skin sensitive, be careful, wear gloves or something like that. So that is basically what the next stage I'm going to slowly do, is undo this loom, pull this away. I was also working on the fuel injector. What I will do is I will bring you over here shortly and I will show you a few bits up close, because obviously being over there you're not really going to get an idea. But yeah, as you can see, it is pretty straightforward. And as I say, obviously that's your rear seat catch. To give you a better understanding of the seat catch as well, it's like bicycle cable really. It basically runs down the outer edge of the panel. You will see it, it just fits in, comes round, so to speak, into there. Through that, you'll see these little metal notches all over the bike where it basically holds the cables rather than making them rub or things like that. Quite a smart little thing from Honda really. And that's pretty straightforward, fits into there. There's a little recess in this bit of plastic here that fits into this mechanism, and then basically this then connects into this two-prong system on this spring. So when you press your switch, pulls your rear lever, whatever, and obviously opens your seat. So it is pretty straightforward really, there's not much difficulty to it. Like I was saying, I've recently, as I was telling you, I've just recently had to, I stupidly locked my seat on Rita when I took the battery out for this one to bring it up here. And as I was saying, it was a faff because obviously I had to take the panel out here and pull the cable. Now, when Rita comes into semi-retirement, I've had to, at the minute, unfortunately, bungee my seat because me, typical me, he manned my seat and I believe I've either pulled it off here or broke the damn spring. So that gives you an idea, if you do break your catch, what sort of level you're going to need to get there. Yeah, okay, you can see your catch or a little bit here under your seat, but yeah, you know, that's, I'm not trying to put you off, you know, not stripping your Forza down or anything like that. Please do. If you've got the confidence to do it, do it. It's a good learning experience. But bear in mind, especially with the scooter, it's full of plastics. It will take a lot to get certain bits to where you need it to be. You know, it's like, for instance, as I was saying, if that latch there has come off but you can't quite get it through the seat gap sort of thing, a 5-minute job just to, well, it's not even a 5-minute job, is it? It's really, it's a couple of seconds, just and done. But the whole bloody thing could take you 2.5, 3 hours just to put it back on. And that is why it's expensive in the garage, because you are paying, what, 60, 70, dealership rates, 90, 100 pounds an hour. So you can see where it wraps up fast. So if you've got the confidence to do it, and you feel confident to do it, because it will save you a lot of money in the end. It will. I'm not saying there's some bits that are probably far beyond skill set. I'm not trying to sound detrimental to you or anything like that, but there is. I mean, I wouldn't personally, I mean, even though I do have an MVQ in mechanics, I won't go to the extreme of splitting, I don't need to on this one, but I won't go to the extremes of splitting that case apart. I won't, even with Rita, I will not pull the engine apart. You won't see a video of me pulling Rita's engine apart and replacing the crank. It's not something I want to do. You know, when you get into that level of mechanics, there's a lot of tolerances that have to be right. You know, you really have to be really onto it with that side of mechanics. And if you're a bit lapsed, you think, things like that will total your engine. So best to leave it to the actual guys that really are into it and really want to do that sort of thing. But that aside, I'm going to take you off this tripod now. I'm going to bring you in a bit closer and really get to see what a stripped mangled Forza looks like. Right, let's see what we've got, shall we? So, now more of a close-up. So, obviously the rear half of your bike, obviously, as you've seen, that's where your ECU lives, etc., cables, your battery location. Now, when it comes to like removing this engine out of this bike, when you've basically what you've seen, when you've taken that loom away, obviously there is certain bits that are going to have to be disconnected, like fuel lines. Now this here, this is your fuel injector. Now this does have a special clip to stop it coming out. Let's see if I can find it. This thing basically fits into there. There is another bit in there that basically stops it from coming out. So I just have to move it around a bit, lift this out, and your fuel line will come away from your injector. That's nice and smelly, as it would be. So yeah, you would basically have to disconnect that. Now on this, because it's a 125, you've got the engine on the side. You don't have to worry about any extended hoses running that way to the radiator, so you don't have to disconnect that. You will have to disconnect things like this here. That's to your throttle. Now what I'm going to do, in this instance at least, is not mess around with that engine. Is I will take it off up there. I will take that unit away, bring it with me best I can. And really, I mean, other than, I'm just trying to look now, you've got your header tank hose here, which you can disconnect quite easily. That obviously connects onto the thingy. That is that. And I'm just trying to really see, other than, as I was saying, the rear brake cable, this thing, it flexes there, you disconnect it there, and that runs onto this hard line that runs all the way up to the ABS pump. So you would basically disconnect that away, and that's got your brake caliper away. Now the whole engine itself, other than undoing them shock mount bolts there and there, you know, as you can see the condition, put a bit of spray grease on them to get them cracked loose. Possibly, I've not looked at it yet, but there is this belly pan option here. I believe this will be screwed somewhere. That'll come away. And at that point, when you've got sort of that hose off that header, you've got the loom out, just to bear in mind there, your ground wires, make sure that they're on before you do anything with the bike, for God's sake. You will then almost be ready to pull the engine away from the frame. Now, let me just have a look on here somewhere. There is, you can see that nut there. I'm just trying to find if there's another one. I think it's this one here, not that one. I see that bracket there, that thing. Well, as I was showing you in the previous videos, you would undo this nut here. This nut's about, according to the book, I will show you the book, is about 60 odd Newton meters. And as you can see, that's never moved from factory, it's still got its paint lines on it. 64 Newton meters, you crack that loose, and that is basically one long bar, probably about 8 or 9 inches long, I would say. And it will come out, it is there. Obviously you will have had to have taken all your side stand assembly away. Basically, when you've got all this away,
you've got a bolt there. That bolt will then just pull out, completely out, and at that point, when you've got everything else disconnected, the engine should stay where it is on its side stand, and basically you should be able to get this whole frame and walk it away forwards and leave the engine behind. And this really is simple as that, really. And then obviously it'd be a case then of all the smaller bits obviously starting to transfer as to what. Now I will put that into another video at some point of this engine going into this other frame. Now whilst we're on the subject, there's also, as I said, a bit of bonus footage. Frame. So you've seen the frame in the last current state as it was. She's not quite finished yet. I've got another coat of paint so to put on her, but this is what we're looking like, guys. Looking a whole lot better. It's amazing. Just a bit of crust and hammerite. Yeah, I mean, okay, you can see still the old scabbing of where rust was. It's understandable, you know, unless you're going to have it completely media blasted or something like that. You're never going to get it perfect, but for its intended purpose, it is coming together and it is looking nice. To be honest, I actually can't wait to get that engine onto the back of her, because actually by being able to sort of even mock mount that engine to the back of there is, to me, a form of progress. You know, something's coming together. At the minute, well, just look at it. There's parts everywhere. You know, parts everywhere, and this shop's got to be a good 200 square foot or more, and it's just full of Forza bits. You see what I mean? I'm just tripping up everything. So, yeah, as I say, guys, that is what we're working on. I hope it's not been a bit too drawn out. I'm sorry if it, you know, if I've been a bit rambly in this one. Obviously I wanted to give you an update on part 5, what it all entails. As I say, part 6, I have now ordered brand new parts from Honda. Not everything, but as I was explaining, crack panels, etc. That was a £200 expense, an ordeal in itself. But overall, other than drive belt, which is a couple of quid more, plastic panels, £5 or so, it's far cheaper to do it from Honda. That's what I'm trying to say, is than trying to buy them off people on eBay that want 15 quid for a £5 part that's from Honda. What, you know, come on, seriously, guys, if you can't sell it for the right sort of money, or if it's worth that sort of money, you know, new, don't bloody sell it. Just put it in pig in bin. That's what I'm just trying to say. You know, that's the frustration about it sometimes with bikes. But yeah, so I hope this, as I say, hasn't dragged out too much, and I hope I've tried to give you the best explanation possible. I do apologise. I couldn't bring the video to you in such a way where it was panelled up. As I say, because I've had to start, it's my first time with stripping a Forza, I've had to get an understanding of it. And obviously it would be very labour intensive for me to have pulled it to pieces, to put it back, to then document it on a video. You know, but obviously I have tried to show you exactly how they come off and what process it requires to take them off. I hope this gives you an understanding. Thank you again for joining me. Please join me again in part 6, where we will have brand new parts. I will show you brand new parts. And I would like, fingers crossed, I would like part 6 to see pulling that main bolt out that swing arm on that engine. I really would. I'd really like to see that. Also, part 6 should see that other frame painted up. She just needs basically spinning round and doing underneath. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for watching. If you like this channel, please consider subscribing. and I'll speak to you again soon. Cheers, bye. So as I was saying, I was going to show you the book and then stupidly ended the video, but don't worry. So what we are looking at, are you ready? That is your shop manual for said bike. This is an absolute Bible for this thing. It has everything from stripping the engine to literally removing it. Now, and torque values and everything else and what is required at X certain mileage and stuff like that. Now, they are a bit hit and miss these days, these books. They're not cheap little things. You know, expect to be paying around 50, 60 quid for something like that. I mean, that's what it sort of cost me. But yeah, if you can get one of them books, I'm not going to put a link as to where I got one. Not because I'm evil or in any sense. They are hard to find, and I don't want to put a link up and they're no longer in stock. But obviously, like eBay, stuff like that, you've seen the book, try and search it or search it on Google. If you can get one of them books, it does help. But also at the same yardstick, if you do watch my videos, when stuff is put back together, like the head bearings, the swing arm bolt, things like that, I will be using the said factory torque values with my torque wrench. So you will probably get an understanding there and probably save yourself a few quid. But if you really want to try and get your hands on a book, that's the book to have. Not your little owner's manual that tells you you've got to change your belt every 16,000 miles. It's not going to tell you how to pull your engine out your frame. But yeah, that was just a little quick thing I wanted to add at the end of the video. Sorry about that. It's probably all this noise that's probably putting me off a little bit today. But again, see you in part 6. Bye.